Bitcoin is stuck in the chop, but the stage is set for a massive move. We know ETF inflows are finally surging after weeks of selling. Big players like BlackRock and Fidelity are back in. Saylor is also hinting at another big buy. And we know the White House is also talking about selling their gold for Bitcoin. But we also know we're not out of the woods yet. Plus, if BTC dominance drops, altcoins could very well explode. And with $220 billion in stablecoin hanging out on the sidelines, all it takes is one spark to initiate the parabolic phase in this bull run. And as for ETH, it's been the worst quarter ever. But history says this is when bears get wrecked, and we are very likely looking at a positive Q2 up ahead. So we're gonna break all of this down and more in today's video. So welcome to my channel. My name is Jessica. I'm so happy you're here. And without further ado, let us jump into today's content. All right, so taking a look at Bitcoin's price as we do, we'll see that Bitcoin's been wanting to break out. We have a Bitcoin right now sitting at 87,000 and some change, and this is quite bullish. Quite bullish indeed, despite any certainty between, and this whole ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. So we haven't got resolution there. Although we do know that there's been talks of Trump pushing back his date all the more on when he was going to implement the tariffs. So this is great. He's now even changing the verbiage he's going to use. They're going to be, what are they, like retaliation type taxes? So we definitely still have an uncertain feeling in the air right now. But it seems like despite it all, Bitcoin is rallying quite strong despite it all. So this is a very, very good sign for Bitcoin. Not only that, but if we take a look at how we ended the Bitcoin ETF inflows on the institutional level, you would see that we ended the week quite strong, actually. We ended the week with $83.1 million coming into the Bitcoin ETFs. So this is also a fantastic sign of strength. So this is really, really great. Next, if we take a look at what is going on the weekly, you'll see that after 5 straight weeks of outflows, value leaving the BTC ETFs, we finally are entering into a positive tone, into a positive inflow. And you can see that we have BlackRock and Fidelity leading the way. So this is fantastic news as well. It definitely demonstrates a change in sentiment. But what's next? You can also see, based off of this chart shared by Axel, actually, on X, he shares this brilliant chart that I have here shared on the screen for you. And we can see that the aggressive selling off of BTC has decreased noticeably over the past month. So, and this is all in the absence of negative macroeconomic or market catalysts. Mind you, as I was saying a moment ago, we haven't reached resolution between Ukraine and Russia, but we still have this tariff situation, but he's rebranding so to speak, the tariffs and postponing them. So he's a very smart businessman, President Trump. So this is why I believe when he says we're not entering into a recession, that's because he has so many levers to pull. He's like a true market, macroeconomic, international, like mogul, like to the extent that I think he understands. And not only that, but his own businesses are attached closely to the world and the entire macroeconomic world and sphere of things. So, and you know the conversations he's having on the weekend, even with his family, even with his friends, even with his kids, they're all in the market aggressively. Their business, it's a business family. So I believe he's highly attuned to the market. And so this is why I believe that this is like this whole negative sort of sideways trending, not so exciting phase of the market. I think it's going to taper off soon. I really, really do, because sure, we have the FOMC and, you know, we know that they're going to start chilling out a little bit on the quantitative tightening, but aside from that, it's not just about rates. It's also about job creation. It's also about lowering prices. It's also about bringing, increasing employment in the country. It's so many factors that affect the market that I can really see President Trump and his administration pulling all the levers possible to really bring about a healthy economy. And with that, Bitcoin will rally. And nevertheless, even under conditions as we see them now, the more the US dollar depreciates, the more it's a case for Bitcoin. And so either way, Bitcoin wins. Bitcoin is king. And thankfully, as you can see here, we also see the selling of Bitcoin, the aggressive selling that we were seeing earlier tapering off. So this is a very, very good sign for Bitcoin and the whole crypto market at large. And then now switching gears a little bit over towards just macro news events that are going to affect Bitcoin in the crypto market. You can see, and I shared a video on Cynthia Lummis, I believe, in my last video or 2 videos ago. But here you can see we have more news as of yesterday, actually, where the White House shared just an update. And basically, we can click on this and zoom in, but they're basically talking about the fact what is it called? The Bitcoin Act? The Bitcoin Act, something like this. And it's a proposal to buy over $1 million in Bitcoin over the next 5 years in a budget neutral way, meaning selling their gold, or I believe it's the notes dated at a certain time in history that's very cheap. So it's not the actual gold. It's just like the notes based off the gold or something like this. Let me know if you want me to do a deep dive into this. I'm happy to do a deep dive, but it's supposed to be in a budget neutral way because they're not allowed to use American tax dollars, of course, as you would know. So this is awesome. So they published some more updates on this today, which is great. It means it's moving forward. Next, we can see here that shared by Simon Charlie that the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, they classified Bitcoin as a non-produced, non-financial asset. And then Simon did us the favor here of breaking it down a little bit. So basically, these assets are not created. That's what this means, right? Is that Bitcoin are not created through production processes like machinery or buildings, even though code does produce it and, miners use their facility to do it. But ultimately, it's the solving of this mathematical problem that finalizes the block, right? So anyway, this is really great news that we're reaching clarity in the market, that the international, just think about it, the International Monetary Fund that controls all the money of the world, basically, they officially are reaching clarity on what Bitcoin is. Instead of just hating it, they're starting to understand it. And that's always the first point in conflict resolution or in negotiations, is understanding, reaching a form of understanding of the other side, because then you can do something with that understanding, right? So this is a really great thing that's happening. So they put it in the same bucket with, for example, natural resources like land or minerals. So they put it into this sort of asset or stuff you own, as Simon put it here. This is fantastic. Moving on, another powerful indicator, I would say, is now anything that Michael Saylor posts on X, because he can definitely move markets. And this is one of his last posts. It's quite cryptic, but if you've been in crypto for some time, then you know what it means. He shares a chart of their holdings at his company that is a giant play on owning Bitcoin, leveraging the Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin, right? And he just writes, needs more orange, as in needs more Bitcoin. Very likely we could see MicroStrategy or Strategy Now buying more Bitcoin today, in which case that's a bullish signal in the market, and you could see, it pumping the market. Very likely, although it's not a guarantee. What else? So this chart that I'm sharing here with you was shared by Dan Crypto Trades, and he basically explains that for the last 2 months or so, that Bitcoin has been trading at a similar level, in the high range, right? And we know that we need Bitcoin dominance, which is basically the whole market cap of crypto versus Bitcoin, right? That we need it to go into the low range down here in order for basically this to be a signal that altcoin season is really kicking off the parabolic phase. So he says, I will be watching closely for the next move. I think a rejection from this point where we are now in this high range right here could lead to a larger move down considering the recent resilience we saw on the altcoin BTC pairs, even during BTC weakness. So let's see what will happen. But this is where we are now, just in case you wanted to know. So that's good news. But of course, if we want altcoin season to start, we need it in the low range. But it's a good vote of confidence towards Bitcoin, nevertheless, even if it's not the ideal condition that we want for altcoin season, parabolic phase to kick in. It's very good signal for Bitcoin. What else is going on? So, as I was saying in my intro, we know that stablecoins, and I covered this in my last video as well, we know that stablecoins market cap has surpassed $220 billion. So what does this mean? Typically, historically, whenever there's an enormous market cap of stablecoins, and we know that the president and the US administration, they're all really pushing for stablecoin regulation to be passed in Congress, because that's great. That means that even though the US dollar as paper money is losing its value, stablecoins are like a good savior to it, because many of these stablecoins in crypto, USDT and USDC, they are backed by US Treasury bonds, by the US dollar in the form of Treasury bonds. So ultimately, it's a really good case. We know that Tether, one of the stablecoins, is holding more than multiple countries in the world of US Treasury bonds. So stablecoins are a really good thing. But that point aside, we know that historically, back to the post, that every time there's been an enormous amount of stablecoins, according to their market cap, as soon as favorable conditions kick in, like BTC dominance goes down and say they start quantitative easing, they start printing money, then this basically gets deployed into the crypto market and it kicks off the bull run in altcoins. So this is really, really great news. It means we're ready, like before a race, before they shoot the gun. It's like everyone's ready, all that momentum. Like that's where we are right now, which is amazing. And then if we check out this chart shared by Rect Capital, you would see that basically Ethereum has dropped into its historical demand area. So this like baby blue area here has been its historical demand area. So according to Rect Capital, as they say if price can generate a strong enough reaction here, then an ETH will be able to reclaim its 2,196 to 3,900 macro range. So basically their argument is if ETH does this before the end of March, which is here like in one more week, then the entire sub 2,200 downside would end up as a downside wing. So essentially, this is a critical moment in time, and a strong reaction here or a bounce back could lead to bull market conditions, is what this chart is saying, a bullish reversal. So keep your eyes peeled for that. What else? So as I was covering in my intro as well, it's not the best news to bring you, but I'm just bringing you, I need you to know what's going on. Because if you don't know what's going on, then you're just out there swimming like cluelessly, and a shark could be coming and you wouldn't even know. So I bring you everything, the good and the ugly. And then I'm always optimistic on Bitcoin, always and forever optimistic on Bitcoin. And I'm bullish on the projects that I'm holding, good crypto projects. Let me know what you're holding. So I think if you're holding good tokens and you're holding a lot of Bitcoin, some Ethereum, some Solana, like you're good. You don't have any worries. So all of that put aside, you can see that we're ending the worst Q1 ever, like in history. But Q2 is traditionally bullish. And we know that it seems like Trump, with this last statement that he made on changing tariffs, that's such a scary word for the market, changing it to like reciprocal taxes and saying he's not going to do it yet. He's pushing it out until April, sometime in April. To me, let me know what you think. To me, it signaled, it was like the sound of a man who realizes he needs to change his plan a little bit. Like someone who just realized like, oh, what I'm doing is not helping the market. So we'll see. I'm obviously speaking for him, but I have a feeling that we have some good news for the market up ahead of us, because we have a market person in charge of the nation, in charge of the market. And we did get a dovish announcement from Jerome Powell, even though he uses weird language and we don't appreciate that because we'd like a straight answer. The point is they decided to loosen up, to not be so crazy on their quantitative tightening. So ultimately, we're leading into quantitative easing, guys. It's coming. So stay tuned. It's happening. Those who are patient win. But all right, what else? Okay, and this is one of the strongest signals for Ethereum is, remember, you have to follow smart money. And here you can see that BlackRock, like the world's largest like asset manager, like richer than like multiple countries combined, okay? They have been accumulating Ethereum aggressively. And they just surpassed over $1 billion of Ethereum in their assets under management. So while everyone's scared, you know, everyone's like getting tossed and turned by the waves, they're not. They're like, oh, great. Let me go shopping. So you need to pay attention to the big writing on the wall, not the scared graffiti on the wall. Pay attention to what's on the, you know, like on the billboards. You know how it gets your attention? Like, that's this for you. So BlackRock is bullish. You should probably be bullish too. What else? What else? So this article is shared by Cointelegraph, of course, and I'm just sharing this part that I've highlighted here because they're pointing out that also, while historically whales have kind of been blamed, you know, for like market dumps or whatnot, in this case, like Ethereum whales have only been buying. And that's what this article says. I'll read it. It says, ETH whales the only ones buying, according to a Nansen analyst. They say, while some crypto traders often blame large investors or whales for market downturns, these participants are simply playing the market in any direction. According to Nikolai Sondergaard, a research analyst at Nansen, the analyst said that during Cointelegraph's Chain Reaction Daily X show on March 21st, that ETH whales in the 10K to 100K range have actually been accumulating ETH, whereas everyone else has been dumping. So we have really strong indicators from really strong players in the market, really smart, big, rich whales. And that's who we need to mimic. If we want to become like them, then we have to follow in giants' footsteps, right? So, okay, guys, that is a wrap for today's video. Happy Monday. Welcome back. I hope everyone had an awesome weekend. And I will catch you guys in my video tomorrow. Take care, guys. Bye.